So at 8:30 this morning, I got an email that we'd received a copyright claim on our latest video, resulting in a copyright strike on the channel. Now, this was filed by 4-Wheel Drive 24/7, but please don't direct your hate towards Shauno, Graham, or any of the presenters, because I'm sure it wasn't them who did it. It's obviously the channel's become quite a big channel and it's quite a big business. So obviously there were people in the upper end who didn't want to see the content on YouTube for whatever reason. So I've changed some bits around in the video and I've re-uploaded it because I am really proud of it and I loved all the feedback I received. You guys are really the best. So thank you, and we'll have a new video out for you next Sunday. Cheers, guys. Why are 4-wheel drives suddenly popular?
Here we are, 170 kilometres along the Tanami track, we're just off the main road.
Well, the truth is, they always have been. But that's not to say 4-wheel driving hasn't grown. The Australian car scene looked very different in the 80s. The majority of the cars on the road were 2-wheel drive Holdens and Fords. This is at a time where Australian car manufacturing was booming and tarmac was king. 4-wheel drives were typically only used by those living and working in rural areas, or by a very small group of adventurous travellers who ventured into remote Australia by heavy-duty 4-wheel drives that were essentially just light trucks. However, this began to change in the late 80s.
Looks pretty good, Rob. Patrol, eh? Are they hard to come by?
Oh, not at the moment.
How's it perform?
Brilliant. Bambi thinks it's great too.
We could do one of these.
Let's go for a bit of a drive.
See your Nissan dealer for special prices on the Patrol ST wagon range.
That's my car.
4-wheel drive suddenly became popular for urban use. Toyota, Nissan and Mitsubishi were pumping out new family-oriented 4x4s that were actually nice to drive on tarmac. Models such as the Patrol, Pajero and Land Cruiser would dominate this market. For the first time, a 4-wheel drive was in the top 10 best-selling cars in Australia in 1992, with Toyota Land Cruiser selling 17,000. But the people who owned these cars were very different to the people who own them today. 4 out of 5 were over 35 years of age, and 2 in 5 were over 50. So why was this? Well, 4-wheel drives weren't exactly cheap at the time. A young 18-year-old would struggle to get themselves anywhere near a 4-wheel drive, as they were just too expensive. However, this began to change in the early 2000s. Yes, the introduction of SUVs. The big 4-wheel drives that people were driving around in the 90s did not have a great fuel economy. Plus, the majority were driven just between school, work, and shops in the city. People decided just to get rid of that old 80 and buy something newer, smaller, and just more efficient for day-to-day driving. It's this point where 4x4s started to become more accessible for those who didn't have the finance to buy a brand new one. Now, not to say there wasn't a core community of 4-wheel drive owners in the 90s or 2000s, because there was. They had clubs, forums, magazines, and even TV shows. However, the exposure was nothing quite like what it is today. So let's jump forward to 2015, when things really started booming on the 4-wheel drive scene. Yes, a little show known as 4-Wheel Drive Action started posting their DVDs on YouTube. And this really showed how accessible 4-wheel driving was. 4-wheel drives were cheaper than they ever had been before, and just a year later a store opened their doors which would change the game forever. Now, we could talk King's gear all day, whether it's trash or whatever, but what Super Center did for the four-wheel drive game was huge. Suddenly, it didn't cost an arm and a leg to get a winch, roof rack, or lights. 4x4 mods and camp gear became way more affordable for those just getting into it. The four-wheel drive scene began growing exponentially, with four-wheel drive groups blowing up all over social media. Even Channel 7 had to have a go at us.
Putting four-wheel drive owners on the back foot, Queensland officers have been trained up to crack down on modified vehicles.
Yeah, I think it's just the beginning of sort of everything orientated towards more four-wheel drive. When I was, a few years ago, when I was like 14, 15 and that, I mean, on the bus to school every day talking to my mates about four-wheel drives, you know, which one's better, Patrols, Land Cruisers. And like that was sort of only a select group of us that used to talk about that. But then as, you know, as we got older, your conversation comes up with the other mates that you probably wouldn't normally talk about, and all of a sudden they've got all these ideas on four-wheel drives as well. And so it's honestly just like it starts with a few people that have a real interest in it, and it's just spreads to everyone else. I got no mates that are like, oh yeah, I want to get a Commodore or a Falcon or anything like that. It's like they all want something that'll take them out into the sticks, and yeah, I think that's just the attraction. Well, obviously there's been a lot of influence from big, you know, four-wheel drive actions, big YouTube channel people. Yeah, they've obviously had a big influence on the four-wheel drive sort of community. I think just the idea of, yeah, I think to like myself and a lot of people, doesn't matter what age you are, the idea of being able to go camping and exploring and see all these new different places and just have fun is really appealing. Like, yeah, a two-wheel drive car will get you, you know, it might get you somewhere, but the four-wheel drive will just get you that bit further to those inaccessible places.
So four-wheel drive started blowing up. Socials like Instagram, Facebook and YouTube make consuming four-wheel drive content just a daily occurrence for a lot of people. Even in the last year, the amount of people searching four-wheel drive content on YouTube has exploded. Hell, even our little channel has exploded in recent months, so thank you, by the way.
Oh yeah, you can't escape it. Like, I'm sure even people that have no interest in 4x4s get it popping up on their social media. Yeah, YouTube is huge. The fact you don't have to go out and buy a DVD anymore, or a magazine or whatever it is, it's just like, it's so easy to consume. It's there, it's on YouTube, it's easy to get, and there's just so many people doing it. And yeah, it's just boosted the interest in four-wheel driving, like just, yeah, crazy amounts. I love driving my four-wheel drive. I don't know if it's just like a feel good about yourself sort of thing. I don't know, it could be in that some sort of way, but just being able to go away, being able to go everywhere. I don't care about going fast or anything like that, so just being able to drive a four-wheel drive, it's just like, it's a whole nother aspect to driving. It's like here in Australia, we no longer produce Commodores, Falcons, and they're like like back in the day, everyone was like, oh, you get a Commodore or a Falcon, because that's like, you know, your somewhat sports sort of coupe. Cars like that aren't being made anymore. They're all just a fuel efficient four doors that drive nicely for people that don't care about cars. I sort of think of it, there's like, you have a bit of sort of spectrum, and there's the people that just have a car because they need to get places, and then on each end, there's people that enjoy cars and like working on cars, having fun in cars. People can be on both ends. They can like street cars, four-wheel drives and that. There is sort of two ends, like I'd say I'm much more orientated towards 4x4s than, you know, street cars, that sort of thing. I think that's the thing, sedans have been around for so long. Back in the day when cars were first invented, no one was thinking about, oh, I want to be able to take this car off-road. They were just stoked to have a car that they could take to the shops. And that was sort of the idea for so long. People were just stoked to have a car that they could use to get from A to B. But then as soon as like four-wheel drives, in a sense, are still really young. They only really started being mass produced in like the 90s, and we're only in 2020. And so there's still that potential where people can see, oh, why get a Falcon that I can take to the shops where I can just get a four-wheel drive that'll take me to the shops but also take me out into the bush.
And this new way of thinking is being shown in Australian car sales, with the Toyota Hilux being the best-selling car in 2019, followed closely by a Ford Ranger. And now with all this growth, the demand for four-wheel drives is back, and it's greater than ever. With COVID restrictions in place, nobody's going to be leaving the country anytime soon, so if you want a holiday around, you're going to want to buy a four-wheel drive. And the second-hand market's getting smaller. Four-wheel drive car prices have increased 30% on average in the past 5 months, and it's not looking like it's going to fall anytime soon. These once cheap old four-wheel drives are becoming sought after, and every four-wheel drive is getting slowly older and older with more Ks put on them. They haven't made a GQ in 23 years, so eventually they will disappear off the market. But don't let that darken your outlook on buying a new four-wheel drive. We are living in the prime time of four-wheel driving. There's amazing places to travel and hard tracks to conquer. So get out there and enjoy it while you still can. unless you live in Victoria, then you're in lockdown and it sucks.
Yeah, so I pretty much think like, I mean, it was like it was in the start, four-wheel drives that we now consider grouse, like patrols and Land Cruisers and stuff, they've become accessible to us. And I think that's going to repeat like in 15 years time or so. The, Hiluxes of this decade and your Tritons and all that sort of thing, they're going to become those cars that are affordable for young people. Like they're going to be a different car to these, but at the end of the day, they're still going to be four-wheel drives. I think there's a really big market for four-wheel driving at the moment, so I can't see it dying out anytime soon. I think it's just sort of picking up.